We can already see the kind of similarities between African witchcraft beliefs and contemporary anti-Semitism. Both share a kind of paranoia about certain individuals, both too far away and yet too close, who are ultimately responsible for the moral pollution in the community. Nobody really knows any witches personally, but they do know that they're evil and they're everywhere and they hide out in certain places sort of over there. Both worldviews provide a kind of holistic metaphysical explanation for evil. They're responsible for the plague, they're responsible for our military defeats, they're responsible for our impoverishment, our powerlessness, and so on and so forth. It's not exactly that they're both the scapegoat in the classic sense, although that is obviously what it is as well, but what marks them off is their kind of shadowy power as kind of both insiders and outsiders at the same time. This is a thing that generates the intense fear, hatred, and ultimately obsession. This is why I don't think we can fold anti-Semitism into racism. It's not that people don't like Jews in the way they don't like Muslims or whatever. It's that the fixation and the obsession on them and their supposed power that makes this a slightly different phenomenon. On this note, we can see kind of examples here. Ilhan Omar is obviously a bit of an archetype for this kind of emerging woke left anti-Semitism. When she uses words like hypnotizing, we know, an anthropologist I think would suspect we're talking about bewitchment, right? This is the witch. She's calling out the witch. She's trying to expel the witch from the community. So if we go back to our original point, then we can see that it's not that Jews are outsiders to separate and alien that makes them evil, or the fact they're too inside, right? It's precisely the both insiderness and the outsiderness of them, or of us, which makes Jews make people kind of get very anxious, right? So this kind of abnormality of the Jewish condition, as some people say. Some people say this is part of our spiritual condition. We're chosen people, holy nation. We're different. We're kind of not quite here, not quite there. Other people, maybe some Zionists, would say that it's an example of our disfiguring powerlessness in the diaspora. We need to overcome it, become normal like other normal countries. That's the solution, right?
I was told, Ben, keep your head down. Don't say anything. I mean, I've been here for about maybe 7 minutes, and you'll see that I found that very hard. I could never keep my head down. I always had something to say. But we were told, be quiet. Don't say anything. And we are trying to integrate into societies that are rooted in Jew hatred. And sometimes they allow us to be Jewish. Not always, of course, but sometimes they do. But it's their definition of Jewish identity. British Jews, I'm a British Jew, as you can tell by my lovely Scottish accent. Every Shabbat, we said prayers for the Queen and the royal family. I still remember it. You think they care about us? And I'm not here calling for the overthrow of the monarchy, although some of the recent behaviour may make you so inclined. And I think it is possible to integrate, and we'll talk about that with the last slide. But we have to do so with a certain level of pride, a certain understanding of the rules of engagement. We're not going to shed our specificity to honour their universality. Actually, you can do both. There is tension that must exist between universality and specificity, and that's just the way it is for all minorities, all diasporic peoples. But we are made to choose, we're made to reject our specificity, we're made to reject our connection to our indigenous land, and it's devastating. Because I said, we are an ancient civilization, and we have survived.
Anne Frank and those who teach her are now blamed for America's inexcusable inattention to and racist disparagement of African Americans, while at the same time, in turn, Jews are gaslighted about racism's centrality to the Holocaust. Having denied Jews the ability to name their own experiences, anti-Semites continue to rename Jews, right? So women are called Karen, or Anne Frank is now called Becky. And by the way, those of you must know that in 1939, the Nazis referred to Jewish men as Israel and Jewish women as Sarah. So this is our history. By cloaking anti-Semitism in egalitarian garb and painting Jews as disloyal to the women's movements, the very women's movements that they helped to establish, self-proclaimed progressives, women and gender studies programs, and women's marches became a powerful weapon in the arsenal of hipster anti-Semitism. Countering their messaging and related optics such as these requires exposing the sexual politics of these actors as dangerously dystopic and in league with the very retro forces they claim to oppose. Often overlooked as anti-establishment, allow me to conclude that just one thing, and that is that movements have sadly become the new venues for a very old hatred.